I created my very first website in my late tweens, and after that, um, in like my mid 20s, when I was, or now my mid teens actually, when I was about 14, I created my second website, which was a Disney website called DisneyWeb.tk. So yeah, totally cold open, but I want to give you all a glimpse of what my experience with programming languages and technology has been so far. So I've always been interested in tech, and I've always had a very interesting relationship to tech. For example, I was always very interested in like gaming consoles and different kind of computers and technologies, but I wasn't a gamer. Yet, even though I wasn't a gamer, I always looked into like the different video console generations, and I just keep up with like different ways that technology is used to make things happen. The same with VR and AR, and with like voice, and with just all these different things that happen. I remember when I was um, yeah, in my early 20s, there was this Disney Channel movie, DCOM, and it was called Read It and Weep, where the main character had a laptop that had like a swivel where it would like you could flip it around and then take it down again and then draw on it, and was basically one of the very first like commercial convertible laptops, which are now very popular, those two-in-ones. But that one was like, I really liked the swivel function of it, and I always wanted to have that one. But I mean, lately they don't really do that anymore. It's more like you can detach it and then maybe flip it around and put it back, or use it as a standalone tablet. But I like the idea of just swiveling your screen and having that used as a tablet that you can draw upon. So yeah, after like the first instances of creating like websites, because kind of my relation towards putting myself online was always like, that was like my very, aside from like the MSN Hotmail kind of moments, if you will, like my main social media aspect of it always has been like my own websites. So the very first website was more personal, and it wasn't really, it was more of like a, yeah, experimental website maker kind of website, where the website maker was an online platform that you could use to create websites, and it worked without having to know any code. No HTML, no CSS, nothing. The same with the second one, Disney Web. I've always been a fan of Disney, which is also why I use it as a way to like edit in my videos. You use like a Disney font always, a Walt Disney font. But for a couple of years, I've had that website, Disney Web, and it didn't receive like a lot of traction, but it was just for me like a creative outlet and putting myself like online in a way, even though I didn't promote it at all, except for maybe like the tagline on my MSN and stuff like that. So those were my introductions towards like front end development, and then after that, I kind of, I for a couple of years I didn't really invest that much time in it anymore. I closed down those websites, and I focused more on like theater and just music and just like my own personal things. And somewhere along the line, I really got introduced to sociological topics in the theater that I did, and just was interested in like gender and race and sexuality and all that, and that is when I yeah, and also like around that same time, also Gamergate happened and all that, and I was very interested in like the idea of diversity in tech, and just like all these stories coming out of like how there aren't a lot of people of color in tech, there aren't a lot of women in tech, there aren't a lot of queer folk, or at least like openly queer folk in tech, and that it was the industry was kind of in a thirst for that to enter the space as well. The same with like HP laptops that had like the technology where you couldn't the HP technology. I don't know if my camera can. Um, the camera can follow you, but it didn't work for people of color, especially like darker skin tones, and just stuff like that. Different like biases and algorithmic problems that would occur because of the fact that there weren't a lot of people of color present. The same you can trade in for gender and sexuality and all that. So in 2014, I decided to start like a studies in software engineering, and that was a big mistake. I found out later on because the setting of school just wasn't for me. The main idea was that in here in the Netherlands, the education system after like high school, you have like the Dutch word for high school actually is like that, and it's like in between like an university and high school kind of space where you learn like higher education basically, but it isn't like a university, so it isn't like a scientific kind of thing or research based. It's more just applied, and then so the is called information technology, IT, and you immediately had to choose between 4 different paths: either software engineering, game development, and 2 other things I wasn't even interested in. And I it already started there where I was just so frustrated that I even had to choose up front. I felt more like, why can't you just sample it out and find your way as you go along? And just the whole idea of creating things that I wasn't interested in creating. We learned to work with Java, and I wasn't interested in Java either. We used NetBeans to as our compiler, and just that whole experience, and at the same time I was doing 2 different theater projects at the same time as well, which was a lot, and I definitely spread myself too thin, but it just further proved how just that whole setting wasn't for me. After that, I just decided after like a semester, like, you know what, this is not it. And for about like a couple of years, I stopped with everything related to tech in general. Then after a while, I got introduced to there's this website called Cadence, which focuses on arts education in higher education, and it's an online platform where you can find all these different courses that universities and just higher education and colleges they provide. And one of the courses that was offered there was one with I guess programming for artists basically, and it's called Chucky is the name of the program language, and that is a sound program language where you can just play with like the time, the length of a sound, and also the pitch and all that, and the way, and you can just, if you're like really excellent in it, you can create like awesome soundscapes. So I was interested in it, and I started it up. But in the midst of like all the just life happening actually, and being more interested in like performing arts and stuff like that, I I really put it on a low burner. But then a couple of months ago, after a couple of years of just nothing, I decided to get back to programming because of also the COVID situation. I thought like this is a perfect time to, get started back again, maybe just spice up like my resume and all that. And I decided that I wanted to really delve into JavaScript because like a couple of years ago, and especially with my experiences with like Java, the language, and just looking at the kind of use cases I had in mind of what I wanted to create if I were to create something, I saw that JavaScript would be the most applicable to like my situation. Like for example, I want to create a website, like my own website, rufinoenriquez.com, and like the goal that I have in mind, the intention that I have is to create it out of JavaScript, and I don't really have like a hard time limit on it, but it is definitely something I really want to try and do. And the same with like universal Windows apps and stuff like that. I've seen that you can use JavaScript to create those as well. So there's definitely and it's a very popular programming language. So yeah, it's something I'm really interested in doing and pursuing. But what am I saying? Yeah. So after just experiencing like the whole lockdown and all of that, and just rethinking like my life and my game plan, I decided to, you know what, I'm gonna sit down for this and really get back into it. So I started it up again. I did some Code Academy courses. I did some from Khan Academy offers some JavaScript courses as well, so I did some of them as well. And then I also found freeCodeCamp, and all of these I'm gonna link below. The same with Cadence, and just the whole thing of just starting back up again was the thing that inspired me to do this YouTube thing as well. It was kind of like a as soon as I greenlit myself basically to start thinking and doing code, I also greenlit myself to start on YouTube and just TikTok as well, and just this whole social media adventure and journey. So I did that for a while, and then in the midst of just being creative out of myself again, because of all the creative things I've done were in relation to like projects that I did with other people, and like this is the very first time that I'm doing everything like by myself, not necessarily because I want to, but just because that is the case, and and this is the path that I'm currently on. So and just doing all of this kind of inadvertently made me stop to code at all. And I don't want this to be like the end point and the final point of me coding. I'm not saying that I officially stopped, but it's more that it's been put on hold yet again, even though it has only been like a couple of months that I've been doing it. And yeah, it's interesting because the whole thing, like, code is like not a career goal point of mine. Basically, I see it more as like a hobby that I want to do instead of like something that I need to do for a job. Because of the way that my mind works, it's like I'm a creative person, so I need to do like I need to create creative content, and that is just who I am. That is my essence, and that is what I love to do. The same with like I really want to create like Solarpunk kind of moments, but just combining that aspect with coding. I mean, like, especially when you talk about Solarpunk and just being DIY and doing stuff yourself, I mean, it goes pretty hand in hand. It's just another part of my brain, that another part of my mind that I use to make it happen. So yeah, I'm definitely figuring it out still, and uh, I mean, yeah, definitely had some doubt whether I really wanted to continue with JavaScript. And as of now, if I ask myself honestly, I'm definitely still interested in doing it, and I will definitely pick it up again. But for this month, the month of August 2020, the time that we are in right now, I'm pretty good with just focusing on social media for a while, since it's gonna take a time because I want to do like the full freeCodeCamp course, which is gonna take a couple of months. So um, I'm giving myself a lot of time with that, and I don't want to rush it. And yeah, I guess that is just my the or basically for this channel, like the introduction to my journey with programming languages and the way that I want to implement that in my life. So yeah, this is a bit of a long video and a lot of me talking, and I hope you guys stuck around to listen to it. And I will definitely update you on in a later, or excuse me, at a later time where I'm at that moment. But it's definitely gonna be like in a month or so, unless something changes, because everything is up for change, and I'm not gonna judge myself for changing because it's my life and I can do what I want. But yeah, that is my story with surrounding this. So yeah, I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Yeah, okay, ciao.